These are my memoirs. Light up a cigar, smoke up the memories as I sit and dust them off. Why do people say it's just to piss you off?
Welcome, Lenny Richardson, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
Not too bad. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you so much for coming on. So I want to know a little bit more about you, and then also for you to tell the audience who you are. I know you had like a rock bottom experience from college and that hardship and getting from that. So give a brief introduction of who you are and then get right into that beginning of that rock bottom and that journey up from there.
Yeah. So my name is Lenny Richardson. I usually go by leviticusrich on social media. That's kind of my online pseudonym, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
My main occupation is a real estate advisor in Northern Virginia, but one of the main things I try to help people with is achieving what I call the good life or eudaimonia. And we can talk more about what eudaimonia is composed of, but basically it's better health, better wealth, and better relationships with other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's the core of who I am and what I do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So your experience in college, was it positive, negative, or insightful?
It was a combination of the three, I would say. Initially in college, I would say it was negative.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly kind of going into college, I was super socially awkward, like completely super socially awkward. Just had a really difficult time connecting people, difficult time kind of meeting new people. And it was weird because I went to Penn State, and Penn State, for anyone that doesn't know, is a big party school.
Mm-hmm.
So I came from an all boys school to a big party school, and it was just a weird, different dynamic. Yeah, definitely negative at first, but over time, I kind of went through this thing where I went through kind of some bad depression. I got kicked out of school twice. And it's, in hindsight, it ended up kind of, in a weird way, being a positive experience and also kind of insightful. So that's why I say it's a combination of all three, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense to me. I definitely understand. I've been in situations similar to that, right? Everyone has their own unique journey where it comes to a hardship in their life, and they have to find a way through it. Sometimes they lose a loved one and they have to figure out how to get through that. Sometimes they get kicked out of college or they don't do too well in school. They have to figure that out. And it's always a different chapter in life. For me in high school, I had this one class where it was like a history class, and the teacher was terrible. He would basically go over everything in class, take all the notes, read the book, read the chapters we're doing. And when you finally get the test, it's a different test. It's like I studied everything. I wrote every single note down. And it's kind of like, well, you should know this, right? So he was under the premise of you should know this type of thing because he knows it. That's just a bad teacher. Even though many students were not passing that class, administration didn't really pay it much mind because, some people did, right? It was, can you read between the lines, or are you teaching us what you want us to remember, right? Or to recite saying, hey, we know this knowledge. So I didn't do too hot in that class. So I had to go to summer school. And,
oh, man.
and so this is high school too. So I was like 15 years old. And that was like my bad boy phase too. So I had to get over that. I paid for my own summer school, made my own way there, took the bus there. The whole experience was different because I went from private schools, K to 12. And then now all of a sudden, okay, I have to go to this summer school that's a public school. And you can just tell the atmosphere when you go in. It's like, oh man, very different. So I can imagine going from a all boys school to now a party school. It's going to be a big difference. So I had to adjust. But luckily, I grew up in the ghetto. So I knew how to move around those type of people. I knew how to speak. I knew how to act. So it wasn't any issues where I was coming from like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and like House Carlton. And then I'm going to an area like where Will Smith grew up, right? So it was me. I grew up like Will Smith. And then I was in the area still like Will Smith. So it was like home for me. But I had to understand that challenge in my life, right? I didn't do so hot, but I learned from it, right? So I got a different type of environment. And what I want to talk to you next is about the environment, right? Do you think it was the environment of the party school that caused you to go down the wrong path, or to maybe not have the positive outlook you would have liked to have initially in starting college?
I think it was a combination of things. I definitely think the environment was a big thing, just because that whole transition from going from sort of a Jesuit all boys high school where I never drank, never did drugs, none of that stuff, never really even partied at all. And it was an all boys school. So I didn't know any girls in high school, like really at all. Because I was very antisocial in high school, to kind of going to Penn State where it's possible to find at least some kind of party every single day, or at least some social event every single day. It's a brand new setting. I was antisocial, so it's kind of you getting dropped into this whole new environment where everyone's so extroverted, and it's such a huge transition. And I think it was a combination of, at the time, of I thought I would go in and it would be like an immediate change, like who I was in high school wouldn't be the same as the person I was in college. So I think I had kind of weird expectations of Penn State going in, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was a big part of what made the experience depressing at first. You're kind of comparing yourself to everyone else. You see other people, they're like, oh, this guy has a girlfriend. I can't even talk to girls. This guy is getting good grades and I'm doing terribly, or I don't want to study, or I don't feel motivated to even study. So it's just, I guess, a combination of the environment, the comparison, the expectations. I would say, I guess this doesn't have as much to do with the environment, but there was also kind of that financial component as well, where the main reason I kicked out was because I didn't have money for tuition. Mm-hmm. So that kind of compounded on everything else. So that's kind of really what led to the full-on depressive bout, I guess you can call it that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think I think environment was definitely a big part of it.
Mm-hmm. And then we get into like the three areas too, because we need balance somewhere, right? So we had a part of school. Now we're unbalanced because do we party? Do we study? Right. And then same thing with finances down the road too. There has to be a balance. I know you have a special term for it, but we're going to be just talking about like the triad of what it is to be physically balanced, socially balanced, and then financially balanced.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, as far as that kind of balance, I would say the main thing is health. Focus on health, I would say, is definitely the primary thing. And I think for everybody, what you focus on the most or what you choose to really emphasize will vary, of course. But I would say for most people, the first thing is health, because without health, what else really is there? If you're super sick, the main thing you're concerned about is getting better. You're not, if you've ever had a really bad flu or a virus or some other illness, you're not thinking about making money. You're not thinking about your credit score or anything like that. You're not thinking about, oh, I need to go out and hang out with my friends or meet new people or network. The main thing is, how do I get healthy? Mm-hmm. So of course that's an extreme, being sick, but in general, I would say health is that first thing people should focus on. I would say the second thing, and this kind of depends, the second and third thing kind of depends. I would say the second thing overall would be wealth, money, just because obviously you need money to survive. It's important, obviously. And that third thing would be relationships. And I think relationships are more valuable than money in the long run. Mm-hmm. But without money, it's very difficult to kind of get to that third point. Like if you're someone who's living in poverty, it's very difficult to be concerned about networking. It's difficult to be concerned about maybe even like having fun or hanging out or just building a good social life if you're going paycheck to paycheck or you're struggling or you can barely afford to eat. And, of course, those are different ranges of severity. But yeah, money would be second, and then relationships would be third, I would say. And that kind of trifecta of the good life, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with you physically, right? For example, if you ever have the common cold, and let's say you can't taste something or you can't breathe through your nose, you are cursing this cold that you can't breathe, that you can't taste your food. And you're like, I can't wait to get back to normal. I can't wait to taste my food again. I can't wait to breathe through my nose again. And what I do is I help people become mindset coach. Mm-hmm. But they are so unaware of what it feels like to be good right now. They don't even pay attention that they're healthy, that they can breathe through their nose, that they can taste their food, that they're fit and they can maybe go to the gym without being exasperated because because their lungs are filled with fluid, depending on what type of cold they have. People don't pay attention until things go wrong. Yes. So they wait until I'm sick, my life is over, this sucks. And then when they're finally better again, I'm better. How long does that moment last? It doesn't last long. So many people just kind of toss it to the wayside until it's important again. but we should figure out a way where we can make that physical type of well-being a priority, because I believe it's going to be the foundation for us to build more energy, build a better life on. And the reason I say that is not because what I did, it is what I did, but it helps you get more energy. When I had moved to Austin, I was overcoming trauma and I was trying to figure out how to get my life back on track. Finances were mediocre, relationships were mediocre, my physical health was deteriorating, and it was because I wasn't taking care of myself anymore. So the first thing I did to get back on track was to say, I need to get back in the gym. And I was going to the gym religiously 5 days out of the week. But when you have a trauma, when you have a challenge, you don't really care about doing those things that make you feel good or be good. So you don't maybe eat the healthiest of foods. You might eat junk food, fast food, whatever it be, because you're just trying to fill your belly, but you're not trying to fill yourself with nutritious foods. And I had to get over that, where I said, I want to be physically fit again, and I'm going to start with my body. And when I did that, my mind followed suit, where it's like, okay, your body's getting good. You look in the mirror, you're looking good. Self-confidence is up. Great, right? And then that kind of went into the social aspect of it. I'm looking good and I can go on dates now. Girls see that. They say, well, this guy's looking pretty good, right? Now, finances were kind of shaky at the beginning because I'm trying to figure things out again. So I was able to have those relationships socially, but then I was still always thinking about financial aspects or financial balance. So, of course, it was a journey for me, which led to my business. But in the beginning, it was kind of like, well, what do I do? Right? I never really had an issue being social, getting girls relationships. But when it came to money for me, it was always like I was in a rat race. I was always trying to figure out, well, how am I going to pay this bill? How am I going to do that? I need my check so I can pay this or that, until my business, right? Where I said, I'm just going to do things myself. Number one, because having a boss is, it could be kind of annoying sometimes. And then being free, financially free. And that's a dream that many people have, to be financially free. And I know you do real estate now. And I know, you're at that point where you can cultivate better relationships, because finance is one of those things where, yeah, you already accomplished that, right? And it might not be to the degree you want for your whole entire life, but you're better off than where you started. So talk about your fitness journey and then your financial journey after that part.
Yeah. So as far as the fitness journey, I would say that was sort of the main kind of thing that got me out of the depressive bouts. And I'm trying to remember the exact way. I don't know the exact, what prompted me to do this, but I remember one day I was kind of just sitting at home, sitting in my dorm room by myself, because I lived alone at the time, which made the depression worse when you're just kind of in your head in your room the entire time and you don't go to class like I did or like I didn't do.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and at the time I was my friend got me into wrestling a little bit. So my free time I would watch like WWE, and I would watch a lot of Dwayne Johnson. To this day, I still love Dwayne Johnson. And I remember I saw this interview with him on Oprah had some show, and it was a series of YouTube clips with her interviewing Dwayne Johnson. And he was talking about how he went through depression and how he would work out. He'd wake up at 5 a.m. And it was just interesting to me because I liked Dwayne Johnson, but I always saw him as like this huge, physically and kind of personality wise, larger than life individual. And I thought to myself, how can a guy like this get depressed? And then I thought, well, if he can get depressed, I don't feel as bad about me being depressed. And then the third thing I kind of thought was, well, if he was depressed, he's doing very well. This is when his career started to kind of reform itself. And he started getting more into the movies. This is kind of when he started doing Pain and Gain. This is before Jumanji. And now he's probably I think he's one of the top paid actors. Yeah. This is before he was at that point. He was getting into it when he had just quit WWE. Basically what I did was I modeled him. I figured if he got out of it, obviously I'm not him, but what did he do? And can I mimic it? And can I will it work in some way, shape or form? So I did that, and I started going to the gym more. I would wake up at 5 a.m. just like he did. I would try to do his exact routine. I would watch his videos before I went to the gym to kind of inspire me and motivate me to go. Because at the time I didn't have a gym partner to motivate me. So I had to motivate myself and use his videos to help motivate me. And that's sort of what started the whole fitness thing. And then over time, it just became a habit. over time, you no longer need to listen to a Dwayne Johnson video. You don't need to do that. It just becomes sort of a natural part of who you are.
Mhm.
And then you get to that point where you feel like, if I don't go, I feel guilty, or the day. I'm sure you probably felt that too, where it's like, oh, I haven't gone today. I feel weird. I have to go. I have to do something to, not feel guilty about not going. So that's where the fitness part kind of began.
Mhm.
And then I would say for the finance part, once I started to kind of work out more, it definitely made my mood better. Kind of as you mentioned, your self-confidence, your self-perception of yourself gets better. Your self-esteem is raised a bit. But then I was still I was still at this time not in college. This is around the time I got kicked out, and I needed money because I was working at a gas station. And at the time I was making about $8 an hour at Penn State, living off campus in an apartment. And it cost me about, I think, like $700 a month. Comparative to, if you compare it to anywhere else, it's not terrible. But when you make $8 an hour and you don't always get 40 hours a week, so it's a lot of money.
It's a struggle.
It's a struggle, yeah. So basically, at that time, what I thought to myself was, how I need to make money. I need to find some way to make money. And then it's not enough to just work. I realized you have to find a way to sort of be wealthy in the long run. And then, long story short, I would go to the library. I would try to learn more about finances, and that's sort of what kickstarted that. Actually, going to the library is where I found this whole thing about eudaimonia, these 3 pillars. It was from a few philosophy books. It was Socrates. That was his sort of model for the fulfilled life.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as time went on, I kind of dove deeper into how does credit work? How do taxes work? How do you budget? How do you make more money? And at that time, I learned about passive income. Never heard about that before. And at that time, from passive income, you go deeper down the rabbit hole. It's like, how do I get passive income? Oh, some people use real estate to get passive income. What is real estate? Real estate, you buy buildings or houses, whatever. You put a tenant in, the tenant pays you. You don't have to physically do work in an hourly sense like you would at a normal job. So that's kind of how I got to the finance wealth pillar without getting too down the rabbit hole.
No, definitely. And what you said is going to ring true for so many people, because many people are in the same exact situation, or has been in that same exact situation, where they're down and out and they don't know how to get out. One of the few things I tell people is slow down and figure out what you have to do. Mm-hmm. And what you did was you went to the library. That's what I did too. I went to the library. I went to the basement. We had a basement in the library. That's where the self-help area was, and the philosophy, all the philosophy books. I would go down there and spend 8-9 hours down there all day, just reading book after book after book after book. So I can try to find the secret, trying to find the key to fix my life, because my life was in shambles, and I knew I could repair it. I just didn't know how. What I do, and I have many other coaches come on, and we talk about that too, because that experience of going through that trauma, that hardship in our life, we learn many different things that work for us. And then what I do is I bring that to other people so they can see that this worked for us. It might work for you. You don't have to keep reinventing the wheel every time a trauma or hardship comes your way, because there's going to be a time when you're going to be faced with an obstacle and challenge. How do we get over that challenge, right? Starting off with physical fitness is going to help your mood, right? Because if you're feeling good, if you're positive, then you're going to say, I want more positive in my life. I like how this makes me feel. But if you feel like crap and you're eating all this crap, you're going to feel like that, and you're not going to be motivated to do anything. And I remember also when I was trying to get back into the gym, I didn't listen to like Dwayne Johnson or anything, but I remember that interview. He was talking about his father and how he was depressed. And so what I did was I created a playlist on Spotify. It was motivational speakers from all sorts. It wasn't just one. It was a variety of speakers. And I made a playlist, and the playlist is called Wake Me Up. And of course, you can go to my Spotify and you can look at that playlist. It's about 1 hour and 40 minutes long. And the first thing I did when I woke up was I pressed play on that playlist. Eventually, I learned that Alexa can actually automatically play playlists in the morning. So she would play the playlist for me, and that was kind of like my wake up cue. The playlist would play, and I got up. At the time, it was 4:30 in the morning. I was getting up at 4:30, to be at the gym at 5. So I got up early in the morning with this playlist going. I would listen to this playlist. That was like my motivation. Now, I rarely have to listen to that playlist anymore because it's just a temporary thing that helped me get to the point I needed where everything was automatic, my routine now. So my Monday through Friday routine, go to the gym. And even if I wake up at 8:30 and I'm like, oh, I didn't go to the gym early enough, I'm still going to go to the gym so I can feel good, right? I got that done because I know if I don't, I'm about to go later. And I would rather get the things like that out of the way sooner than later, because if I wait till later, life could happen, right? Oh, I got to do this meeting, whatever. So I said, let me get the things that fulfill me first done, like going to the gym, and then worry about superficial stuff like meeting with clients, stuff like that. Because you can always make money. You only get one body though.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, it was like a wake-up call, right? The motivation, waking up, showing up every single day, learning how to get out of bed, because when you're depressed, that bed is really comfortable. I will say that. So I was literally in bed, hitting the snooze button, staying in bed for an hour at a time extra that I didn't need. And then I started to learn like the 5-second rule, where you just count down from 5. And if you get to 1, your foot is on the ground and you start moving, right? And that required me to figure out my why in life, because I had to figure out, why am I doing this? Why am I going to push and go to the gym or be socially accepted or create financial wealth? Why, right? So I wanted to ask you your why. Why did you start to make that shift in life for the better?
Initially, it was really just to kind of feel better, to get out of that depression. That was really the main thing. I think as time went on, the why sort of changed. Freedom, I think, was definitely a big part of what I think to this day, freedom's kind of what drives me currently. Because at the time I mentioned, I worked at a gas station. I also, because I needed more money, I worked at a bar. I tried to work at Walmart for a little bit, movie theater. I was all over the place with where I worked. Mm-hmm. And every job I worked at, hate's a strong word, but I hated pretty much every job. And it wasn't necessarily the people I worked with. It was just more of the way, there's something about, for me at least, the idea of having to do something. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, when I worked at Walmart, I didn't have a car at the time. So I had to catch a bus to this mall where the Walmart, to this plaza where the Walmart was. So I had to wake up earlier. I couldn't go to the gym because the gym wasn't open around Penn State that early. So I'd go afterwards. I'd catch this bus, and the bus wasn't consistent. It always kind of came late. It would come early sometimes. If I wanted to visit my parents, say my mom was sick, I had to call off work. It was just a lot of things I felt was sort of, what's a good way to put it? Some things I think in life, you don't want to ask for permission. Like if I want to visit my parents, I don't want to have to ask my boss, can I visit my parents? I just want to go visit my parents. Or if you're feeling kind of in a burnt out state, there's something nice about saying, you know what, today or tomorrow or for the next few days, I just won't work. I'll enjoy my time. So I think the why at that time, and it still is, but I'll be honest, I was a lot more motivated back then. The why was, I just want to be free. Mm-hmm. I just don't want to have to ask for permission to a boss, or I don't want to have to feel like I'm waking up early because someone's making me wake up early. Mm-hmm. Like, so I'm fine waking up early, but I'd rather do it because I choose to do it, not because I'm being forced to do it. So yeah, I know that probably sounds cliche, but I would say that why was definitely highly motivated by freedom. Mm-hmm. And I would say a secondary why, and this is me just being honest, it was to kind of live a certain lifestyle. Like I know some people say, oh, it's my why for making money or my why for A, B, and C is to kind of raise money and donate it or something like that. I think those things are fine, but I'm honest enough to say a big part of it was I just wanted to live a certain lifestyle. I wanted to be able to just go on vacation when I wanted to. I wanted to be able to buy nice things. Some goals I had required more time, more money. That was a very long-winded answer, but those were the two big whys, kind of freedom and lifestyle.
No, definitely. And I'm going to break it down for the audience because what you experienced was your soul being offended. And many people won't make change in their life until their soul is offended. You can offend their mind, you can offend their body, But if someone offends your soul, or if you're doing a task that offends your soul, your character, your being, your true self, your mind says, okay, we need to fix this. Because your true self is saying, yeah, I don't care if we have to put in extra energy. I don't care if we have to wake up at 5 o'clock. I don't care what we have to do. We're going to fix this because we're not going to keep living like this. And many people don't pay attention to that, right? Is their soul offended? Where, your soul is offended. Like, do you have to ask for permission to take a day off? That wasn't resonating with you. That doesn't resonate with your energy, your soul. And so that is why you're like, I'm changing this. If people took some time off and they said, what is my character? Who am I? Where would I like to be? What offends me? What are the things I want in my life? What are the things I don't want in my life? Because if I give you a list of things that you want, you'll be like, yeah, this all sounds good. But if I give you a list of things that you want, it's going to be unique to you, because you might say, well, this doesn't matter to me too, because your soul is not offended by certain things. So it just depends on the person. And many people who don't go after a lot in their life is because
all off work. It was just a lot of things I felt was sort of, what's a good way to put it? Some things I think in life, you don't want to ask for permission. Like if I want to visit my parents, I don't want to have to ask my boss, can I visit my parents? I just want to go visit my parents. Or if you're feeling kind of in a burnt out state, there's something nice about saying, you know what, today or tomorrow or for the next few days, I just won't work. I'll enjoy my time. So I think the why at that time, and it still is, but I'll be honest, I was a lot more motivated back then. The why was, I just want to be free. I just don't want to have to ask for permission to a boss, or I don't want to have to feel like I'm waking up early because someone's making me wake up early. Like, so I'm fine waking up early, but I'd rather do it because I choose to do it, not because I'm being forced to do it. So yeah, I know that probably sounds cliche, but I would say that why was definitely highly motivated by freedom. And I would say a secondary why, and this is me just being honest, it was to kind of live a certain lifestyle. Like I know some people say, oh, it's my why for making money, or my why for A, B, and C is to kind of raise money and donate it or something like that. I think those things are fine, but I'm honest enough to say a big part of it was I just wanted to live a certain lifestyle. I wanted to be able to just go on vacation when I wanted to. I wanted to be able to buy nice things. Some goals I had required more time, more money. That was a very long-winded answer, but those were the two big whys, kind of freedom and lifestyle.
No, definitely. And I'm going to break it down for the audience, because what you experienced was your soul being offended. And many people won't make change in their life until their soul is offended. You can offend their mind, you can offend their body. But if someone offends your soul, or if you're doing a task that offends your soul, your character, your being, your true self, your mind says, okay, we need to fix this. Because your true self is saying, yeah, I don't care if we have to put in extra energy. I don't care if we have to wake up at 5 o'clock. I don't care what we have to do. We're going to fix this because we're not going to keep living like this. And many people don't pay attention to that, right? Is their soul offended? Where, your soul is offended. Like, do you have to ask for permission to take a day off? That wasn't resonating with you. That doesn't resonate with your energy, your soul. And so that is why you're like, I'm changing this. If people took some time off and they said, what is my character? Who am I? Where would I like to be? What offends me? What are the things I want in my life? What are the things I don't want in my life? Because if I give you a list of things that you want, you'll be like, yeah, this all sounds good. But if I give you a list of things that you want, it's going to be unique to you, because you might say, well, this doesn't matter to me too, because your soul is not offended by certain things. So it just depends on the person. And many people who don't go after a lot in their life is because they haven't found what offends their soul yet. And it could be that trauma of having a bad boss. It could be that you got kicked out of school because you didn't have the money, whatever it be. Or it can be an accumulation of things too, that are kind of saying, hey, let's fix this so we can have better. And the lifestyle that people choose to live, there's nothing wrong with that. I want everyone to understand that. You can have any lifestyle you want. You want to live in a mansion with 17 bedrooms? Go for it. That's your lifestyle, right? You want to live in a cabin with just one room and a wood fire oven? That is your lifestyle. There is no wrong way to live life. It is what you want, right? So if you want this slow-paced life or this fast-paced life, that's up to you. but you have to make sure you do the work to get it. Now, of course, if you're just living in the forest in one cabin, you have less work to do, right? It's going to be easier to attain that type of lifestyle versus a high figure, high end lifestyle, fast lifestyle. And it just depends on your upbringing, what you socially want to be viewed as. I mean, some people have to be in a BMW. Some people have to be in a Ferrari. They wouldn't be caught dead driving a Toyota Corolla. They would say, I would die first, right before I get in this car. That's just lifestyle. But what you choose for yourself is going to be important. And one of the best ways to get to that point is to find what resonates with you. Because once you figure that out, then you can start to make progress. And many people skip this somewhere along their path because they're like, okay, I'm just going to go with the circumstances. And I tell people, whether you have to work at Walmart, work at McDonald's for a month, a year to get your foothold in the door or to create a foundation for you to spring forward, do it, right? There's nothing to be ashamed about by working a low-end job momentarily. This is where people mistake working a job like that because they say, I would never work here, but then they're bleeding out. Yeah. I would rather, let's stop the bleeding first, and then let's figure out how we can make our life better from that. So if you're at a low-end job, if you're making minimum wage, if you're barely getting by, you're in the rat race, let's figure out how to build an empire. Because you can work a 9 to 5 and barely get by, but how do we create that financial freedom, right? That's going to be after work. We have to create better habits, better routines. Because if you're coming home and watching Netflix, I can guarantee you, you have routines that can be improved upon. Because if you need more book learning, you need to speak with a coach, someone that's going to help motivate you or bring you to a new level in life. That is what you need. So I wanted to ask, what was your routines after you were working at Walmart, gas station, things like that? Were you doing anything different? Because I know waiting for the bus can take a long time, and that takes up 3 hours of your day, maybe. So when you started to change your routine, how did that look?
So just to make sure I answer correctly, when you say change the routine, do you mean kind of while I was doing Walmart, or do you mean?
Yeah. So it could be while you're doing Walmart, or if you did a complete pivot. So if you were still working at Walmart and you worked, let's say Monday through Friday, your routine would be that now you don't want to work at Walmart in your head because your mind is saying, I don't want to work at Walmart anymore. So when I get home, I'm going to read books on real estate or financial freedom or passive income.
Yeah. So at that time, my routine wasn't too crazy, because the main objective for me at that time was just to get back into college so I can graduate, because I was towards the end. So this is probably around my junior year of college that they initially kicked me out. So I didn't have that many credits to go. And so basically what I would do is in the early morning, and I worked at Walmart for about 3 or 4 months before I was almost fired. So I'll give the more main routine that I had much longer. Basically, I'd wake up around about 5, usually about 5 or 6. I'd go to the gym. Usually that would take me about an hour or so, and I'd walk home, and it was about 15 to 20 minute walk home. After that, I worked at a gas station in the morning until the afternoon. So I'd go to the gas station around 10 a.m. or so. While I was at the gas station, what I would try to do, I would try to bring a book from the library to the gas station. I would try to finish work quickly because they had assigned tasks. And the boss didn't like this because you're supposed to work and clean, or you're supposed to do something while you're at work that's not personal. They had a saying, I can't remember the exact saying. It was something like, if you have time to lean, you have time to clean, something like that, which I hated. And I didn't listen to it. But I would do the main tasks, and I would always have a book or something that I thought would help me. It would be maybe a bodybuilding book, because I had a few kinesiology textbooks at the time. I had some personal finance books and budgeting books. I had a few books about just life in general. And I had some of the main books I read actually at the time were on sort of dating and charisma, things like that, because I was still trying to go from being introverted to learning how to speak with people better. Except I literally at the time, I couldn't even make eye contact with people because I would get so anxious and so nervous. And I kind of stuttered at the time too. So I couldn't really give a good sentence. Basically, while I was at work at the gas station, I would read books. I would try my best to kind of get work done quickly. That would last until it would depend on the day, usually until about 3 or 4. I would do that. I'd come home, shower, take a nap for a few hours. And the job I had that was super steady in the afternoon was I worked at this bar, first as a dishwasher, and then gradually I moved up to dishwasher slash.
Mhm.
I would do that until I think I'd start that around 6-ish or so. And depending on the day of the week, I would be there until about 11 to 2 a.m. And leaving there, it just depends on when the last what comes in. If it's a weekend, usually on the weekends, I would try my best not to work there because some weekends you don't leave the bar until 3 because everyone's drinking. The bar closes at 2, whatever.
Yeah.
But that was my routine. And the whole goal for that was really save money, try my best to pay off whatever tuition I owed. It was like a few $1,000s to get back into college and then resume college, pay my rent, of course, too, and graduate. So it wasn't a super extreme. It wasn't anything too ridiculous as far as routines go. I know some people have routines that are very, I wake up, I do emails, I do this, I do this. It wasn't that intense. It was pretty much just work to make money. And then in between, whenever I had free time, obviously nap, get my energy, work out, and try to learn whatever I could in between, audiobooks. And I would grab a book from the library, and that was sort of the main thing I would do in my free time.
Yeah, and what you created was a work ethic, though, and many people misinterpret what that means for them. Because if you're a hard worker, if you're putting in the hours, it actually helps you later in life. When I was 16, I got my first job working as a dietary aide in a nursing home. And I would work there full time, 32 hours to, 40 hours, depending on if they had overtime. Sometimes I'll get maybe 46 hours, right? So I would work there. And then I eventually, through college, I got a job coaching children how to swim, and I would do about 24 hours there. So if you add up the full time and what I was doing about 60 plus hours a week. So I worked a full time and a part-time job, and I was still going to college, and I was paying my own college, and I was doing 18 credits, right? So if you've been to college, you've done it, you're like, that's a lot. But for me at the time, when I was going through it, I was just like, handle your business. I don't have a choice. Like, I have to do this. So I worked through it, and I created a strong work ethic. And many people nowadays are afraid to create that work ethic. And I mean, what better way to show that than the whole quarantine? The quarantine, people had the opportunity to say, well, I don't have to go to work. The government's going to pay me $600 to stay home on unemployment. And they chose that rather than going to work, right? And I'm not saying that you should go to work and make $500 for that week if you worked at like a low-end job. But what I'm saying is that work ethic, many people just said, well, I'm just going to stay home and do nothing. And they did nothing. Now, if you use that opportunity to say, okay, I can get $600 of unemployment, but during my unemployment, I'm going to read more books. I'm going to be more proactive. I'm going to start a business. I'm going to do something with that time. Then now we're saying, okay, we're still having a good, strong work ethic, but many people chose not to have that work ethic. So when people come to me looking for coaching, we look at the work ethic, number one, too, because if I see you're a hard worker, then we already have to fight because they are going to put in the work. Many people are afraid to show up. Many people are like, yeah, this is just too much work. I don't want to do it. That's why they'll go for a job for one day and say, this job's not for me, because they realize how much work it is. And some jobs are going to suck. And I encourage every young person to have a sucky job initially. All right. Not long term. Please don't be, 50 years old working at a job you hate. But in the beginning, find a job that's going to be hardworking, where you're putting out a lot of energy for, so it's very strenuous. And then you can like it. I'm not saying you can't like it, but for me, just coming home exhausted, that's a good feeling because it trains your mind when you're an adult saying, I was able to do this before. Why can't I do it again? And then now it becomes more desk work. It becomes more programs, more speaking, where it's not as difficult, but you still have the work ethic, right? A strong work ethic. And as long as we can build that, then your foundation is strong. many people are missing that work ethic where they don't even realize that, okay, I'm a lazy person because I don't want to go to work. I just want to come home after work and then I just want to watch TV. Those are just bad habits to have, and we have to get rid of them and start to replace them with better habits. My final thing I want to ask you is what's happening in real estate? We need to know.
Real estate is quite hectic, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
In general, if we're talking about the market, it's a very strange market. If you own a house, I would say, I don't know. I would say it depends on where you live, depends on your situation. But selling is not a bad idea because you can make a lot of money at the moment if you have a house. I would say for anyone listening, if they want to buy, I would still try to buy. I know it's a bit competitive for a buyer, but I still think it's a great time to buy just because typically houses don't decrease in price. And if they do decrease, they don't decrease by that much. So I would say your best bet is still to buy a house, even if it's difficult to get in. And at least you're going to build equity over time as the house increases in value. Some people I know, they're sort of waiting and they're thinking, oh, well, the price will eventually go down, which it could happen. But I don't think it's going to go down nearly as much as people think it'll go down. And my general philosophy of things is you can't predict the future. You only know what today's circumstances are. And if today seems like a decent time to do something, then why wait for tomorrow? You don't know what's going to happen. For all you know, something crazy could happen. Interest rates could go back down to what they were and house prices could keep going up for the next 5 years. And then it's like, well, you could have bought today, but you waited because you thought next year it'd be cheaper. And it turns out it was far more expensive in the next year or so. So yeah, if I would say for the general person listening, that's my brief tip on what they should do. For the long term, I would say, and I know I'm biased, but I would say try to get into real estate definitely with the intent to use your house as an investment tool. There's sort of a debate in the real estate world. Some people will say buying a house is not an investment. And then others will say that by default, buying a house is an investment. I'm in the middle. I think a lot of people buy a house. They don't really know how to use the house as an investment. So to me, if you buy a house and you just live in it, I think that's fine if that's what you want to do. But I think if you're looking at it from a financial perspective, you're not doing yourself that much service by just buying a house with a lot of space to just live in. To me, the best thing to do if you buy a house, either buy a house that's really within your means, that's smaller, if you really want to live in your own space. If you're going to go and buy a bigger house, use the house as an investment tool. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but for anyone listening, if they want to look this up or if they ever want to DM me, look up things like home equity line of credit, look up cash out refinance. Depending on how much space you have, try to convert your house into a tenant-friendly establishment. If you have a basement that you don't use, put a tenant down there. In places like where I live, a lot of people have 4-bedroom houses. It's a family of 2. Take the 2 bedrooms, rent it out. People will live there because it's cheaper than maybe renting an apartment or trying to buy your own house. So that's always my advice. Try to make your house an investment tool. I think by default, if you have no investments, a house is an investment if you have no investments at all. But I think for a lot of people, they're not actively using their house as an investment. And then other stuff with that comes into tax benefits that people don't take advantage of. That's a bit more on the technical, deep in the weeds side. I mean, I can always get into it one day if you're ever interested, but for anyone listening, I would say just the main thing to think about, ask yourself, how do I make my home an asset? And if you don't have a house, work towards getting one as soon as possible. Inflation's been crazy. So
very true. Yeah. And then also the same mindset question, how do we make ourselves an asset too? Because finance is one of those things where we have to touch base on in our life, right? Because if we don't have some type of structure when it comes to our bank accounts, where we have at least a little nest egg, or we're able to pay our bills every single month, we have some left over, we're going to be stressed on that. And financial stress is so heavy, right? If you have student loans or if you have credit card debt, you know firsthand that it sucks. It feels like you have this like whole entire world on your shoulders and it's just suffocating you. One of the things that people have to do is not only look at mindset in the sense of, well, I'm going to go learn meditation. I'm going to learn how to do yoga and be more mindful. That's a part of it too, because we have to look at the world stress too, because the world gives us a certain amount of stress too that we have to deal with. And one of the things that we have to understand is financial literacy. So we have to find people like Lenny, where if you're going to buy a house, that you're informed, that if you're going to get into investments, you're going to be informed. Whether you talk to a financial planner, you have an accountant, someone that's going to help you in this aspect of your life too, because though you don't need a lot of money to be happy, you need to make sure that the lifestyle that you are trying to fund is not causing you to be stressed. Because sometimes people say, I'm going to get this car, but they only make that much money what the car is worth. So for example, you get a Lexus, this could be $60,000, but you make $50,000. Probably not a good thing, right? So you want to make sure just because you're trying to have a higher status in society, you're not hurting yourself financially, because then that's going to weigh down your mindset. It's going to make you negative. It's going to make you not want to push in life. And that's not where we want to be. So Lenny, can you just tell people where they can find you, and any final words if you want to say any?
Yeah, I would say the best place to find me would be Instagram. My Instagram is leviticusrich. I'll spell it out because it's a lot of people. It's hard to spell. Leviticusrich. Second best place, I have a website. It's lennyrichardsson.online. And you'll be able to find my Instagram there too. That's a bit easier, I suppose. Yeah, as far as final words, I would say, I don't know. My philosophy is always, there's this thing I say, it's called Kaizen. And it's just kind of constant, continuing progression in life. I would say, keep trying to Kaizen, keep trying to improve yourself at least a little bit every single day. If that means exercising just a little bit harder every day, obviously not to the point of destroying yourself, but push yourself a little bit harder, learn a little bit more, meet at least one more person, do something different every day that's going to improve your life. I would say I don't really think you can go wrong actively trying to improve your life every single day. I think that's how you get the best return on investment of your time.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. The balance, right? Making sure if you're going to work out, you work out to the point where you feel good, you can recover for the next day. Because if you kill yourself on one day, how can you produce the next day? And then same thing with finances, making sure you're not going out because you got your tax refund, spending triple of what you got, and then realizing now you're $4,000 in credit card debt, and now we have a new problem, right? So we had that financial stress again. We are trying to keep up with the Joneses, the societal type of peer pressure, and we're not really going after what we truly want. So taking time to find that balance, taking time to find out what you want to do in life, and then going after that. Thank you so much, Lenny, for coming on. Lenny Richardson, everyone.
Thank you for having me on, Mike. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
Yeah, damn, we done came far. The blessings soon pay off. I don't get a day off. Feel like the playoffs, they like way out.